There is an energy inside you right now that, if redirected, could change the entire trajectory of your life. I am not being dramatic, neither am I using a metaphor. There is a literal, biological, and neurological force stored within you, one that every major ancient civilization understood, that modern science is only beginning to study seriously, and most people are unconsciously draining it every single day without realizing what they are losing. Today we are going to talk about sexual energy. Not in the way the internet does or a productivity tip you try for a week. We are going to go deep into the biology, the neuroscience, the ancient philosophy, the psychology, and the very real implications this has for the kind of life you are building. If this topic makes you uncomfortable, good. That discomfort means we are getting close to something real. Stay with me. Let's start with a principle that cuts across every domain of life, one that most people have never consciously examined. Creation requires sacrifice. Every single thing you have ever built, achieved, or brought into existence cost you something. Starting a business costs you time, attention, money, and years of your life you will never get back. Creating a piece of art costs focus and emotional exposure. Even a conversation that genuinely connects two people costs vulnerability. Nothing of real value is created without something of real value being spent. This is the basic law of how reality operates. Energy does not appear from nowhere, and it does not disappear into nothing. It moves. It transforms. It is redirected from one form into another. Your sexual energy operates under the exact same law. Biologically, the production of sexual fluids, particularly in men, is one of the most metabolically expensive processes your body undertakes. Semen contains zinc, selenium, calcium, proteins, enzymes, and several other compounds your body invests significant resources into producing. From a purely physical standpoint, the body treats this fluid as high-value material. But the conversation gets much more interesting when you move beyond the physical. Ancient traditions, across cultures that had no contact with each other, independently arrived at the same conclusion: that sexual energy is not merely biological, that it carries a life force, a creative charge, something that, when retained and redirected, becomes the raw fuel of human achievement. The Taoists called it Jing. The yogic traditions called it Ojas. The ancient Egyptians encoded it in their mystery schools. Nikola Tesla practiced celibacy and credited his mental clarity to it. Many of the most productive artists, athletes, and philosophers in history have spoken about the deliberate conservation of this energy as central to their work. Before you can fully embody this power energy, you need to understand what dopamine is actually doing to you. Now let's get into the neuroscience, because this is where most conversations on this topic start being verifiable. Every time you reach orgasm, your brain releases a surge of dopamine, an enormous flood. Dopamine is the brain's primary motivation and reward chemical. It is the signal your brain sends itself that says, "That was important. Remember it. Do it again." Here is what most people do not understand about dopamine. It is not actually the pleasure chemical. That is serotonin. Dopamine is the wanting chemical. It is the engine of pursuit, craving, and motivation. It drives you toward goals, toward food when you are starving, toward connection when you are lonely, toward achievement when you are ambitious. Sexual release produces the single largest spike of dopamine a human being can experience. Larger than food, larger than social praise, larger than most recreational drugs. And your brain, after experiencing that spike, recalibrates. This is the part that matters. When you flood your brain's dopamine system with the maximum possible stimulation repeatedly, daily, or multiple times per day, your receptors begin to desensitize. They downregulate. The brain, trying to protect its own balance, reduces its sensitivity to dopamine, which means that over time, everything else in life begins to feel less rewarding, less interesting, less motivating. The morning coffee that used to feel like a small pleasure, a conversation with someone you care about, a project that used to excite you, the early progress on a new goal. These things produce relatively modest amounts of dopamine. And when your baseline is already elevated from chronic sexual release, those modest amounts barely register. This is not a theory. It is basic neuroscience. The same mechanism underlies every behavioral addiction: gambling, social media, food. The brain adapts to high stimulation by becoming numb to lower stimulation. And then life, ordinary, beautiful life, starts to feel flat. When you deliberately reduce that highest level dopamine trigger, something interesting happens. Your baseline recalibrates downward. And when that happens, smaller things become pleasurable again. A morning walk, a good idea, real human connection, the satisfaction of doing difficult work. These things begin to feel like something again. That recalibration is not a side effect of the practice. It is one of the core benefits. The higher mind and the lower mind. This next section is going to sound philosophical, but I want you to stay with it, because what it describes is something you have almost certainly experienced, even if you have never had language for it. Every human being operates from two distinct modes of consciousness. Call them what you want: the higher mind and the lower mind, the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system, the spiritual self and the ego. The specific vocabulary doesn't matter. What matters is that you can feel the difference between them. When you are in the lower mode, you are reactive. You are driven by sensation, by craving, by the need for validation, by the desire to consume, pleasure, status, stimulation, approval. You make decisions from fear or hunger. You think short term. You are easy to distract. You feel vaguely restless, like something is always slightly wrong. When you are in the higher mode, something is different. Your thinking is cleaner. You are less reactive. You can sit with discomfort without immediately reaching for something to fill it. You have genuine ideas, original, generative thinking that feels like it is coming from somewhere deeper. You are creative. You are present. You are, if we are honest about it, more yourself. The ancient traditions understood something that modern psychology is only beginning to confirm. Sexual energy and higher order cognition share the same underlying life force. They compete for the same resource. When you are frequently depleting your sexual energy, you are, in a very real, functional sense, spending the currency that higher level thinking runs on. Think about how the mind operates after orgasm. The well-documented postcoital state involves a neurochemical shift. Prolactin rises, dopamine falls, mental drive drops. This is colloquially called the refractory period, and it is not purely physical. Mentally, you feel less ambitious, less sharp, less interested in anything requiring sustained effort. Now imagine living in a low-grade version of that state chronically, because you are releasing frequently enough that your neurochemistry never fully rebounds. That is the experience many people are living inside, without recognizing the source of it. The flip side is equally real. Extended periods of retention, of consciously holding that energy in the body, create a kind of accumulated charge. Artists describe this as creative pressure. Athletes describe it as physical intensity. Entrepreneurs describe it as drive and urgency. It is the same underlying thing. Your sexual energy, redirected, becomes motivation. It becomes focus. It becomes the generative force behind everything you are trying to build. Now, before I tell you how to redirect this energy, you need to understand the hidden cost of casual sex. Sex is not a neutral exchange. It is not like shaking hands. When two people are physically intimate, something genuinely moves between them. This is not mystical speculation. There is measurable biology behind it. Oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, floods the system during and after sex, creating genuine neurological attachment, whether you intended that attachment or not. This is why casual sex, despite how it is often framed culturally, rarely feels as uncomplicated as advertised. But beyond the chemistry, there is something subtler happening. Every person carries an internal world, their emotional patterns, their unresolved experiences, their worldview, their energy. In intimate contact, these internal worlds interact. You absorb something of the person you are with, their emotional state, their anxieties, their quality of attention. People who are very energetically sensitive often feel this clearly after intimate encounters, a residue, positive or negative, that persists. This is an argument for discernment. The question is not whether to be intimate with people. It is whether you are being honest about the real exchange taking place. Whether the person you are choosing to merge your energy with is someone whose internal world you want to briefly inhabit. That is a much more serious question than most modern dating culture encourages you to ask. And pornography sits in a category of its own here. What pornography trains the brain to do, over repeated exposure, is to associate intense sexual arousal with passivity, with spectatorship, with the absence of genuine human connection. The brain is being rewired to find its most powerful stimulation in a simulation. And that rewiring has real consequences. Diminished response to actual human intimacy, distorted expectations, and the psychological strangeness of outsourcing your most intimate experiences to content designed to capture and hold your attention as long as possible. What you practice in private shapes who you are in public. The patterns you rehearse, alone, quietly, are exactly the patterns that will show up in your relationships, your confidence, your capacity for real connection. Now let's get to the big bag. How to actually redirect this energy. Everything so far has been description. Now let's talk about application, because information without direction is just interesting noise. Redirecting sexual energy is not about suppression. Suppression does not work. If you simply try to stop the feeling, to clamp down on it, to white-knuckle through the urge, you are fighting the river. The energy does not disappear, it just backs up, and the pressure increases until it finds release through whatever outlet is available. Redirection is different. It means consciously taking that rising energy and channeling it into something generative before it defaults to its lowest resistance path. In practical terms, this looks like recognizing the rising feeling, the restlessness, the pull, the particular agitation that precedes the urge, and immediately moving it into physical output. Intense exercise is the most direct channel. When that energy enters the body, you take it to the gym, you run, you train. You use the physical charge to drive physical intensity, and then something interesting happens. After exhausting that energy in a high-output activity, the craving often dissolves. What remains is clarity. Creative work is equally powerful. Many artists and writers deliberately work in states of heightened sexual energy because they know from experience that the creative pressure and the sexual pressure are made of the same material. The practice of sitting down to write, to paint, to build, to solve in that charged state, and choosing creation over release is one of the oldest productivity secrets in human history. Cold exposure is another practical tool. Cold showers, or cold immersion, interrupt the neurological momentum of arousal, reset the nervous system, and shift the body from a reactive state to an alert, calm one. Many people who practice retention use cold water as an immediate circuit breaker when the urge arises. Breathwork, deep controlled breathing, has been used in every major tradition that emphasized the conscious use of sexual energy. The breath literally moves energy through the body. Slow, deep exhales activate the parasympathetic nervous system, reducing the intensity of craving without suppressing it. Rapid rhythmic breathing, as in certain pranayama practices, can move accumulated sexual energy upward through the body, where it is experienced as mental alertness and creative aliveness rather than physical urgency. These are physiological tools with measurable effects, and they work. I want to end with something that goes beneath the productivity and the biology and the ancient wisdom, because all of that, as useful as it is just the surface of what this practice is really asking of you. At its core, mastering your sexual energy is about learning to choose. Specifically, it is about learning to choose the long term over the short term, in a culture that is aggressively designed to make you do the opposite. Every major platform you use is optimized to extract your attention and your dopamine right now. The entire economic model of the digital world runs on selling you the quickest possible hit of stimulation, and sexual content is the most powerful version of that hit. The system is not neutral. It is actively designed to train you toward immediate release, toward consumption, toward passivity. Reclaiming your sexual energy is, in this context, an act of genuine autonomy. It is the decision to stop letting the most powerful force in your biology be captured and monetized by systems that have no interest in your actual well-being. It is choosing to be a person who generates, rather than one who only consumes. This is not easy. It will not feel easy. There will be resistance, internal and external. The culture will tell you the practice is unnecessary, or repressive, or strange. Your own nervous system, conditioned to its current patterns, will push back with urgency. But here is what I know from the people who have committed to this practice seriously. The life on the other side of that resistance is different, quieter, sharper, more alive to small things, more capable of genuine depth in relationships, in work, in thought. The most powerful version of you is not the one that is constantly releasing. It is the one that has learned to hold, to build, to direct. That version of you is not a distant ideal. It is what you are, underneath the conditioning. Go find out.